Hey, it's Valerie Ling here. How are you doing? I would love to share with you my story of being in business. If you'd like to listen on, please do. And it's prompted because I have been getting requests to explain how I've managed to get out of the operational part of my first business, which is a psychology practice, and was the key to that freedom my social media and influencer profile? Is that what happened? Well, if you're curious and interested to find out, then buckle up, tune in, and let's go. I've had a psychology practice business for the last 10 or so years. It started out with just me being solo, delivering all of the services, and then grew to being a group practice. And really, I've had several models that I've tested as I grew up my business. I first had a little bit of a dabble in a rental model. So essentially getting subtenants to rent out my room. And then I moved to having a subcontractor model, which is essentially referring my work out to people who were part of my umbrella but were a separate business, to having employees, and now having a mixed model that serves the different needs of our clients and really our business. And that grew from a solo practice to now, I think we're a team of just under 20. And that's the one business. So that's Center for Effective Living. Center for Effective Serving grew out of the pandemic, really, as I started to notice that my social media presence and my influence space of speaking against burnout really got elevated to another level during the pandemic, as burnout just became something that was everywhere. And so Effective Serving was born to serve essential servers, basically the essential services and workers at a systemic level. So whether they are educators, healthcare workers, people in professional services, to basically have workplace wellbeing solutions and to come in and deliver workshops and webinars and talks and things like that. So Effective Serving is a second business which is well and truly earned its street cred as a business now, and it also tags on my coaching business, which is my third business, which is to coach clinic business owners basically to get out of operational prison into freedom, knowing that we've got recruitment challenges. So part of the journey, I suppose, of what I've done has come actually from needing to make changes to survive and to thrive, to forecast, the changing picture that we see in healthcare in terms of scaling with purely by through recruitment. So my method, I guess, of getting out of the operational model of a practice really came from a couple of light bulb moments. The first light bulb moment came when I attended a workshop, and we were asked to put up our hands if we own our own business, and just about all of us did. And then it was, put your hands down if you have other people working for you. And very few hands went down. A lot of us still had our hands up in the air. And basically, what was said then is just bear in mind that what you have is a sole trader situation. You still work for yourself. You are your own boss and you are your only employee. But at this point in time, you are the job. And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about it. And here's the interesting thing, as a solo trader, not only do you still do your clinical work, you then have to figure out the marketing function. You've got to do all of your accounting stuff, which really, after tax, you're like, why am I doing this? And then you've got all your expenses. You've got to deal with the bank. You've got to deal with, additional insurance and things like that. And really, at that point in time, I realized that I had to really figure out whether this was a job that I was better off doing or just working for someone else. Now, at that point in time, because I had children, it of course made sense for me to remain flexible. But that was my first light bulb moment, that when you have a business entity and if you're a solo trader, you still have a job. how you do your job and what kind of a boss you are to yourself really matters. And that was my interest in burnout, right? So, watching, predominantly watching people who were in the helping professionals, really wanting to give their best to their clients and to their serving community, but also dealing with the organizational and the leadership issues and all of that. It's like, wow, this is like, a big recipe for people just burning out and getting exhausted. So that was my first light bulb moment. My second light bulb moment was realizing that you could have a real factory mindset to running a health business in that you replicate yourself. You get all these people in to work for you. I think that is the mindset, and you replicate yourself. And then, you just want to make sure that they're able to do the work exactly as you do it and at the same volume and at the same pace as how you do it. And then the more you replicate yourself, the more you're going to be able to get out of there. That's what I thought. Not so simple. Particularly when you are a health or clinic owner, you're not replicating products. You are replicating, head, heart, and hands that serve other people. How do you do that? People have different personalities. People have different approaches. They've got different beliefs, different values, different passions. So I then realized, okay, what am I going to do? So this is my first lesson and my first tip to you. I thought that the method was to delegate out my work, outsource my work to my team. But really what I was doing was abdicating. Okay, because when you're a clinic owner and you have people around you, you have to lead. You have to inspire hearts. You have to encourage. You've got to develop people where they're at, figure out what they're driven by, who they are, and what touches their hearts, what touches their minds. So you have to lead. You can't just delegate and think that you can't just abdicate and think that that's delegating. What's the difference? Abdicating is going, here are 25 clients for you to see this week. You need to keep them all booked up. Otherwise, we will lose income. Here you go. Here's a couple of templates. Here's our online booking system. And here's what you need to do. Go. That's abdicating. Sorry. I'll just be frank, upright. Unless you have people who are with you because they all just want to be separate entities and have nothing to do with you, and it has nothing to do with your brand, and you're renting rooms, for example, that abdicating model will not work very well, and you won't be able to get out of your business. In fact, it can breed conflict, it can breed resentment, it can breed a perception that you're actually just not interested and you're basically using people. So I learned that it wasn't possible to abdicate. And I think this is where the confusion can come, in that when I'm asked, so was the key to me getting out of effective living through coming online and having an online presence and building a personal brand that has led me then to be able to, work in the effective serving space? No. Answer is no. No, that was not the key to my freedom at all. Do you know why? It's just another beast, different market. When you're providing workshops and talks and seminars, it's a products-based business, really. I mean, it's still services, but you're billing for delivering a particular product. There is no natural referral system for that. There are trillions, I'm sure, people online now who, have channels and do all of these things. So no, it's not the key to freedom at all. How it worked for me is exactly this. Okay. 3 circles. Just think of 3 circles right now for how the health business grows up to the point where 3 main circles are chugging along well, and you have a team with you who understand what they're doing, they feel inspired, they feel valued, and they commission you out to go out, go do what you need to do. Okay, so first thing I would say is there are three circles. Effective living, I've talked about as being like a child, not because the people are my children, but the growth stages. Talked about how, being a toddler to being the primary school age to the high school at the teenage years were challenging. They were difficult. They were probably around the maybe 3 to 700K part, because I was learning how to become less controlling and more empowering. So the high school years to an adult to being independent. And the three circles that I've needed to keep my eye on are clinical, governance, and operational leadership. Operational leadership, if you like, are all the things. It's not admin and it's not rosters. Operational leadership in my world represents all of the business operations and management functions. So, there are 6 of them that we keep our eye on within operations, including finance and marketing and sales, right? So that's operations. Then there's governance. The governance circle in our world as healthcare owners includes what the Health Regulation Board requires of us, includes what our landlord requires of us for insurance, includes all of our legal and compliance issues to keep the business healthy, safe, future-proofed, risk protected as much as you can. So there's the governance arm of it, circle of it. And then there's the clinical circle, right? Because lo and behold, not everybody will take care of a client or a referrer in exactly the same way you should, and nor should they. However, there needs to be some standards, right? So we don't keep people waiting, for more than this number of days before we return their calls. We make sure that, so everything that made me proud to be a professional psychologist, everything that made me proud to have the confidence to know that my clients and our referrers and our partners were being valued, they need to go into the clinical circle, and they include standards as well as how we do therapy, how we do assessment, as well as how we take care of our clients and our referrers. Now, those are 3 circles, right? And in the early days, I was head of each circle. And when I was head of each circle, I was head of all the subdivides in each circle as well. And a common, I guess, what I hear very often amongst my peers is, because we have a recruitment challenge, that what's going to happen is you have to find these particular type of roles so that you can get out of those circles. Well, the way that I did it was to value the people that I already had, to actually see their strengths and to lean into those strengths and to ask them, would you like to take a chunk of this circle? And as I let go of portions of the circles, if you like, and a strengths-based approach to the different people in our team, that consolidated into roles, really, initially. And by doing so, there was greater ownership, there was greater awareness and insight that, this is why we have that policy. This is the reason why. Yeah. Could we try it this way? I suppose so. That's not a bad way of seeing it. If that's the outcome we want to get to, this may not necessarily be the way, because why? Many of the processes that I had put into place were calibrated to me. I'm extroverted. I have a high tolerance for making risks and making mistakes. Fast, I'm chatty. Can't calibrate the systems and the processes to my DNA. Let's try a different way. So in each of those circles, I started to look for people with strengths within my team, but also as I was recruiting. to actually keep my ears open and my heart open as well as people started to chat and talk to me and tell me what they enjoyed. And so very soon those circles became held in heart and mind and ownership by the people of the Center for Effective Living. And as those circles started to be owned by different people, probably the first circle I let go of was operations. I let go of the business management, if you like, and that role was split to practice manager as well as to an administrative team that held the different functions within that. And we have cross teams, so it's not only the administrative team that does marketing, for example, or it's not only the administrative team that takes care of intake and booking. We have cross teams, so we cross pollinate our strengths within the subsections of the operation circle. The next circle I let go of by investing profit and investing my time to build networks was the clinical circle. I wasn't really able to find people to come in as to be hired in, but I had invested over the years of getting to know other psychologists, thinking cross borders, for example. Do they have to be in Sydney where I am in? Or, what are the different ways that I can put a collective around our team to provide the clinical supervision and the standards and the delivery? And in fact, some of our administrative team hold on to some of the clinical standards within that circle. So to begin with, again, it was a strengths-based thing, looking for peers who enjoyed training, looking for peers who enjoyed supervision, looking for ways that we could build some of the professional standards by investing some profit into building those infrastructures and outsourcing some of those functions until those functions were consolidated enough to see a role, to see innovative ways that we could fill that. We had a team mentor for a little while, for example. Do you know what she did? It was great. They did therapy think tank, which was essentially I think one of the fantastic exercises, because I didn't initiate any of this. This was a strengths-based activity. So the team mentor at the time was on mat leave, who's coming back. I think one exercise was she got them to bring a block of like some Uno blocks. So Jenga, Jenga blocks, and think of all the different ways you can actually use this as a therapeutic tool, right? So eventually, like attracts like, that energy brought people who didn't feel intimidated to take the whole chunk. You can do that bit of the clinical standards and the clinical circle. You can do content based. You can do skills and status. You can do so. We started to work as a collective. You can do peer led, right? What if we have this part that needs to be fed, which is keeping on top of evidence based practice? Well, who here is the geek? He's like constantly looking at journal articles, even when you don't have to. Okay, strengths-based approach. Let's build around that. So the next circle that I let go of was clinical. Now, I've always held on to governance at a level. So, as the key director in our business, I am responsible for ensuring that we are financially sustainable and viable, that we're forecasting realistically, that we're projecting for all the things that are around the corner and essentially leading. But I was able to outsource in that governance quite a lot of the operational analytics part of it, bringing solid legal resources, bringing solid accounting and bookkeeping resources, bringing really solid advisory services, using a bunch of freelancing talent to hold some of the reporting functions, so that all I needed to do at the end of, so what we've been able to do is in that circle is predominantly my executive assistant has been in that space with me, and she has been the one who's been the conduit to our professional advisors and advisory services, knowing what information that I need and bringing that to my attention. So at the end of the day, or at the end of that season, I had operations, clinical, as well as governance, feeding through some standards and procedures and a strengths-based approach, feeding me with what I needed to ensure that the ship was not only sailing smoothly, but was robust for storms. Now, here's the thing, right? So, was it the social media and the influencer space that got me out? Well, no. I needed to be released from my team to even have the focus or the courage or the to go. So once the business reached a particular point and I was very much, I reduced my presence in the practice from 3 days to 2 days to one clinical day, and then reducing it further in terms of my physical presence, people needing me to sign off on things, needing me to attend meetings, physically reducing to 2 days a week down to one day a fortnight, and very soon next year to not needing me in there. But as I was able to do it, I was commissioned by the team of Center for Effective Living to be released to go out and explore. That's one of the components for me of the leadership model that works for me in a health business, was to go out and explore what's happening on the ground. What are people saying? What do people need? What are the latest books? What's the latest thinking just outside of psychology journals? Integrate, synthesize, and come back into the team. And as that process was happening, the advocacy position and the advocacy voice became clearer and clearer because I could go out, talk to other people, network, read things, attend conferences, dialogue with people, synthesize, synergize, come back in, infuse back into the practice. The practice constantly, there is one word and one emotion. I have to tell you, sometimes I feel like I don't want to break you with this, but it is excitement. The emotion that predominantly gets shared with me in the practices. It's so exciting. This is so exciting to come back in to report back, if you like, and then to be recommissioned out to the space. So for me, it wasn't the going out that got me freedom from my practice. It was the empowering and building a strengths-based approach, but by identifying what were the key circles and then the sub-circles within that we needed to absolutely keep our eye on, making sure that there were fantastic communication processes between the team and solid handover functions on a daily, weekly, monthly, if someone leaves us, processes, so that those functions and those processes don't get disrupted when people leave. It was that provided then the space for the team and the courage for the team so that they didn't feel abandoned. I hope they don't. Abandoned or left behind, but to come back, report back, and then be recommissioned out to bring it back in. And that movement of going out, coming back, going out soon meant, if you can kind of see this as, effective living, it used to be I'd come back here, and then go out here. I come back here and go out here. I come back here and go, until, I'm kissing, sort of, and then going much, much further out. And that was how it was possible to give birth to effective serving, which requires focus and energy, as well as the private practice leadership accelerator business. And why, it's not so much like, oh, let's just get out of here and go online. It's about being able to be commissioned. And over time, effective living's people have come into these different spaces and they've helped me in effective serving. So psychologists go out and give talks as well. They've developed groups as well. They've provided me with their expertise. It's not uncommon for me to send an email back to the effective living team to say, I've been asked to do this, or I've been given this complex situation. Advise me. It's, the subject header is Valerie needs your help. Advise me, give me, tell me, what are you seeing on the ground? And it's not uncommon for the team to support the private practice leaders that we have under my coaching brand. They come alongside the teams, our practice manager inputs, my executive assistant inputs. And so really across all the businesses, it is still a team effort. That has been the thing that has allowed me, God willing, for however long he chooses to let this season go, how we've been able to actually achieve that freedom and independence. I would say that I'm autonomous in the businesses, but I'm not necessarily independent. I still love all of what I do. I love knowing how my team are going, but through empowering them and them mutually feeling that they've empowered me back to go into the space. So think carefully and clearly about what you think is going to be the key to freedom. Can I just say that if it is coming from a place of resentment, fatigue, and exhaustion, that's not really the energy signatures that you want to rely on when you're starting new ventures, like pivoting to online groups or doing talks and seminars, because really that is a reinvention, and their new markets and their new clients and new products that all have to go through a period of rejection and refinement and clarity. So it's not necessarily the savior of getting out of your clinic business. So I'd love to know what you think. And yeah, stay tuned, subscribe if you've liked what you've heard so far. And if you're interested in being a part of the next round of the Private Practice Leadership Accelerators, which is my highest priority in the week when it comes to my coaching priorities, they're a group of private practice owners who have group private practices, who come together to think tank, to rely on the resources and the processes of my team in those three circles, and even relying on my team to achieve a sense of uplift. Well, ValerieLing.com is the place to go. There's a little button there that you can click to send in a communication with me. Take care.